Hello again, this is Mike with Toy Train Tips and Tricks. Yesterday in the mail, I received a box of replacement parts I've been looking for, and so that led me right to the workbench to make a repair on this car right here. This is representative of Lionel's modern era dump cars, whether it's a log car or a coal/gravel dump car. They work pretty much the same, and so let's look at the history of these and how to put them together, and some minor repairs. So from the late 1930s, about the time that Lionel came up with the idea of the remote uncoupler, they also came up with the idea of these remote operating cars. And some of the first ones on the roster were dump cars, of dumping coal or dumping logs by remote control. Now, these late 1930s cars, late pre-war cars, were very toy-like, not very realistic, but they added some action to the railroad. In the post-war period, they brought these back with some modifications, and these early cars used the flying shoe pickup and used solenoids to do all the operations. As the post-war period progressed, by the time we got to the 1960s, Lionel was looking to cut costs, simplify operations, but at the same time, they made the cars a little more realistic. There's more plastic here than the early cars, which were mostly metal, but there's more detail. They're a little more realistic looking, but the operation is different. So this particular car traces its history back to the Lionel number 3362 /3364 of the 1960s. These cars basically were identical, the only difference being one of them carried a load of wood dowels that were made to look like helium tanks, and the other carried wood dowels that were supposed to represent logs, but the car itself was identical. So operation, it's pretty ingenious, really. So instead of having a solenoid in the car, and instead of having to rely on the flying shoes and the 5-rail uncoupling track, what you have here is your plunger, which you can either manually operate using one Lionel used in the 1960s called the camtroller. In the 1970s, it became the Pneumatic Uncoupler, which we'll see an example of here in just a minute. And or you could use any magnetic uncoupling track. And so what you have here is a magnet attached to a tripping device and this plunger. So when the plunger is depressed either by the magnet or by pulling it with the pneumatic uncoupler, it separates from the magnet, operate the spring, and the spring dumps the load. Just about identical to the coal/gravel car, except instead of having a log tray, you have this gravel tray, but it works the same way. This one has a tricky trigger when it's unloaded. But again, you pull this back, it separates from the magnet and operates the action. When it's empty, it likes to go off on its own. Not so much when it's loaded. It's a little safer there. So this is a 1970s version. This is 1978. And this is a 2000s version, built in 2007, this Canadian Pacific car. And these have been cataloged in the 2000s. And going the opposite direction from simplifying operation, now they make some of these that are command controlled. Seems like overkill to me, but that's the way it is. So this particular car, these are both from my son's collection. He just bought this one at a show, and until this one, it had a few dings. There's a little piece missing here that doesn't really affect the operation, but what did affect the operation was our spring was missing right here. So I ordered a replacement spring. I also ordered a replacement one for that while I was at it, and just replaced that. It didn't take long to fix it. The trick, if you have to replace this is in removing this tray. And let me show you what I learned here is to take it off, if there's no spring on here, to take it off, this left side pulls back. You see where this red piece is here, it'll pull back to clear the black, and then you can pull it this way to clear the one on this side, it'll come off. Similarly, to put it back and to put the spring on, I attached this side first, got it in the groove. This side was still up with that there. I lined up the spring, put that back, and dropped it. Whoop, hit the camera. Whoa, okay. So let's see it in action real quick with the logs. And these are actually, I don't know if they're really light wood or if these are actually plastic. They're very, very lightweight, which is good because we have to overcome, this is all powered by the power of the spring. So there's not a lot of, can't handle a whole lot of weight, we'll say that. So I'm going to manually activate the plunger and pop, and there it goes. So a complete set will come with a tray, either for your coal or for your logs to go into. This just sits along the side of the track so that your logs don't go everywhere or your coal doesn't go everywhere. It will come with either your logs or your bag of coal. And in the case of the ones in the 1970s, they did include for you, let me open the box, a Pneumatic Uncoupler. These work a lot better than the Camtrol uncouplers from the 50s and 60s. They don't have that annoying string in there, for one thing. This is a one-piece plastic piece. This goes between the ties. This little section here loops over the edge of a tie. You press down on the button here. It lifts the arms. Bingo. And you can either uncouple with your thumbtack couplers or activate the plunger on your operating car. I wish they made more of these because it was pretty handy. And then for the coal car, let me get the coal back out here. Again, all we have is the spring to power the operation. So with the coal car, let me demonstrate here. Again, the operation is the same. You've got the spring right back here. And it would be replaced the same way. In order to lock it in place, you have to get the door up. And sometimes it's a little finicky. Okay. So if I took all of the coal that came with it and put it in the bin, I'm going to activate it, and I'm activating it, and nothing's happening. Why? Well, because there's more weight here than the spring can push up. So, what do you think about halfway? I'm going to put the coal bag halfway on. And this is the original bag of coal that came with this, by the way. And there. It would dump that much. What we used in order to avoid the weight problem and also the mess is, instead of using the coal, we have some large plastic boulders that came from a Fisher-Price toy. But usually we stick that in there. And so not only is there not a lot of weight, but it's easy to pick up. It's easier to pick up 3 big boulders than all this coal if it happens to spill. So like I said, these are both from my son's collection. He enjoys them immensely. And so these are the modern era dump cars. Again, starting the 3362/64 was made on and off throughout the 1960s. The MPC era, this one's from 1978. They brought them back in the 2000s as the log car here. Pretty easy to maintain, and they add a little bit of action. These are pretty inexpensive. To get just a loose car at the show, you're probably talking $15, $20 to get one complete in the original box. I paid less than $30 for this in original condition. So that gives you an idea on what you've got there. So you can add some animation to the layout. They're not the best operating. I think the post-war cars operate a little better with the solenoid included, but they're also generally a little bit more expensive. So there you go, the modern era Lionel dump cars. So I hope you like the video. If you do, hit that subscribe button, like it, share it with your friends, tell your neighbors, and keep those trains running, and we'll see you next time.